Good morning. It's about 10 o'clock, and we'll start, and we'll hope somebody else shows up. And if they don't, they're lost. This is a different, somewhat different format that we've used before, because Allison is part of the C-suite of the PGA Tour. Our other speakers, just so you know, the Exalted Group, Allison, you know Vicki Oakes, the director, or whatever it is, of elections. Parvez Ahmed, Shannon somebody. I sat on her board for 3 years, so I should know her.
With Ability.
From Ability Housing,
wow.
exactly.
Great.
So, some good speakers. Allison Keller. How many of you had a chance to read the material I sent out? I hope you noticed it was only 36 pages. 37 because I didn't count page 1. That's true. So you've seen her bio. I won't bore you with that. What excites me about Allison is that she participates in everything that I've seen her in, which is primarily our church, participates as fully and with as much vigor and excitement as anybody could possibly imagine. It's not a dalliance on the side, it's jumping in full boat, and I love that part of your life. Why don't we start with the easier kinds of questions, and go from the local out a little bit. It's pretty obvious that there are lots of golf courses around. How important is golf in Ponte Vedra?
That's a great question. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you, Bob and Sally Ann, for having me. These are two of my dearest friends in life, and thank you for the opportunity. I'm honored actually to come because, you know, just like the PGA Tour and the TPC Sawgrass and Players, which is kind of a special jewel, I know Vickers Landing is, and I've learned a lot from Sally Ann and Bob and other friends who have here. Just what a great group of people, very vibrant, interesting, and very engaged in the community. So wonderful to be here. I think here, as far as the golf here in Ponte Vedra, I think there's no debate that it's a very big part of what we do. And some people probably inside these gates, you know, maybe it's irritating every year when those lines and the traffic and the noise and the crowds, but it's pretty phenomenal. You know, we host 70,000 people sometimes per day at the event. It's incredible. Not during the COVID, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I think the most important thing is the impact of charity. And Bob and I were just talking a little bit. Many of you may know this, but the PGA Tour is different than other sports in that it started as a charitable mission, and it still is to this day. So what we are is we're a 501c6, meaning it's a membership organization, tax exempt, with a charitable purpose. So right here in Ponte Vedra Beach, you know, when we started, I want to say, gosh, it was 47 years ago. When we started is after we have the best players in the world coming right here in our neighborhood. They're playing on this amazing stage, one of the most compelling golf courses on the planet. And after every ticket, every hot dog, every beer, every soda, all the dollars come in. And then we pay our player prize money. There's a purse. And then after that, and we pay just the bills and keep the lights on, every other dollar goes right here to charities in this area. So it's the 5-county area. And many of the charities that we all love or have supported over the years, it's vital funds for them. You know, so any of the things, you know, that address homelessness or veterans, you know, anything that we care about. So for instance, we average $10 million a year annually right here in this community. So the impact, we're really proud of that. And it frankly creates a different culture, Bob. You know, there are a lot of our employees are from, you know, we're in, I guess it's 7 countries now, many different languages, and our employees could work anywhere, but they love our mission and what we do in the community. That's a differentiator for us than other sports.
You know, you think about $10 million, and in a world of billionaires, so it's not a lot of money. But for any of you, and I know some of you personally have been in charge of raising money or been active in trying to raise money for whether it's the symphony or Shannon, what's her name's housing project. But I hope some of you appreciate memory loss at age. But raising money for those things, $10 million is a lot of money.
Yeah.
And that it's spent in this community is truly wonderful.
Yeah, we're proud of that. And the Red Coats are the volunteers, and it's made up of that's why there's thousands of volunteers, because they know that the dollars are going right to the charities. And there's Giving Back Month each fall, Bob, where they literally go around and they get the fun of, whether it's Sanctuary on 8th Street or, and they literally, there's grants where they actually, get to celebrate with some of the folks and make sure they're funded. So it's important.
I noticed earlier that Jim Furyk works with Malavia Washington, and together they apparently,
Yeah.
I don't know how active that is, but for some of you who know, Malavia Washington runs the tennis camp here for young kids, and I think he has 600 or 700 children, young people a year, all from North Jacksonville, almost exclusively from the poorest communities here in the area, and it's great to do that together. What about not professional? Just the fact that there are so many golf courses in so many different communities, and thus there are so many players. Is that a cost to the community, environmentally and economically, or is it a benefit, or both?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, generally, and we look, of course, at sustainability, but I'd say, first of all, we have the Jacksonville Beach, which is a public course, and I love the yards. I don't know if anybody's ever been there or played there. You may have been to Three Palms, but I've played there. It's a public course, which is very important because, as you all know, golf definitely has a perception of being elite and expensive, but the reality is most rounds of golf every day, week, year are played on public muni courses. So even right here in Ponte Vedra, we've got the yards, we've got Palm Valley, we've got others. We have a lot of public courses because otherwise it's really hard to it's awkward if someone says, listen, my child's really interested in golf. How do we get involved? Well, have you paid a $25,000 initiation fee at a golf course? That's not. So we have public courses here. As far as the environmental impact, I know all of our clubs at the TBC network, and we have many around the country and actually around the world, are, I always get it wrong, Sierra Club certified as actually nature preserves. And so you'll see sometimes on our telecasts, these aren't nuisance, but you'll see creatures, whether it's a bald eagle, or you'll see alligators or other critters, running across the course. We don't kill it. It's a nature preserve. We want that. We want to preserve the nature. So the chemicals that we use, the water sources, we're very conscious of water sustainability and also low carbon footprint. Keeping the green spaces and the trees is very important. So we're pretty excited. Now, of course, there's the circus that we run every week to week, going to different towns, and that does take energy to move around. So I'm not pretending we're carbon neutral, but I think we're heading in a pretty strong direction, even with our global home that we just built.
Fabulous. Are you a golfer? Do you play?
I do play, and I was telling Sally Ann before we started that I just recently broke 100, so that's the kind of golfer I am for those of you who play. But I think something that I've learned, having been in the industry for all these years, is that women in particular are hesitant and nervous to say they play because, it's so intimidating, and we need to work on that. We need to make golf a game for all. So I guess I'll start by saying, first of all, it's a lifetime sport. It's the only, right now in clubs, I was laughing when a friend of mine reminded me that here in different clubs in Ponte Vedra, they have the Octogenarian Open. Lots of folks playing in these super senior leagues. So it is the game for life. It's healthy. You're getting outside. You're walking. You're moving. But to answer your question, which I'm avoiding, I learned that so Susie Whaley, who was the head of the PGA of America, it's a sister organization, Susie, she corrected me once. She asked me that question when I got to know her, and she said, "Do you play, Allison?" I said, "Oh, I'm terrible. Oh, I should take lessons. I have kids, and I'm busy." And she explained to me that if you ask a man and a woman that question, the man and the woman could have the same exact equipment, taken the same lessons, played the same number of times, a lot or never. But you ask the man or the woman, and she'll say, "Oh, I'm terrible. Oh gosh, I'm humiliated." And you ask the man, he says, "Yes." And I've learned that because I play more often. I get out there and look, we're all just. That's the beauty of golf. For those of you who know, you're playing against yourself. And with our handicap system, I played in tournaments that are fun. And if I have an advantage because of my handicaps, I get strokes. It's really fun. And I think it's the greatest game ever invented because it brings together presidents and kids from all different backgrounds globally. It's got, every president I can think of over the past, in my lifetime, is a pretty avid golfer.
Yeah.
Joe Biden, his home course in Delaware, he's a very, very strong golfer. His team, his special advisor, who's former Congressman Cedric Richmond from Louisiana. We're really good. We're all good friends, and he's a golf nut. And he, as an African American, he and some of his colleagues have played on something they call the Chitlin Tour, which I was so there's actually a tour designed for older black dudes. But then, of course, President Trump's golf is well documented. Everybody's aware of that. And just going back further from there, Obama is an avid golfer. Our commissioners golfed, I think, with every single president in the past administration. It really does bring people together, even with our very divisive Washington, D.C. scene. There is National Golf Day, and they still, where the Democrats and the Republicans play each other. I don't know if you know that happens. It's fun. It's one of the few things where they can meet on.
Well, of course, who wins? That's what I'd like to know.
It's top secret.
A couple of more difficult questions about golf. Let's talk, first of all, something that affects all of us. How did golf survive? What was the impact of COVID? And I'm saying, past tense. I know it's really not quite past tense, but talk about COVID and golf.
Yeah. So I think, I don't know how many of you were actually here on that fateful time of March.
Oh, that's right.
I guess 11 through 11, 12, of 2020, because that Wednesday night, when we were entertaining, we had guests from all around the globe, and we had our players, and after a function, we all turn on our TVs and we see that the NBA had suspended their season because of Rudy Gobert testing positive with the Utah Jazz. The president announced a travel ban, and we have a bunch of players from all over the country, and it was absolutely, we had crisis management calls at midnight. Are we going to play? Are we going to pause? And I'll spare you the details because you can probably remember, but we started off where we're going to play, then, and we're on the phone with the White House, with the governor. Right down the road, Disney's still operating, so we're trying to get a sense of where all this is headed. It's kind of the fog of war. But ultimately, we canceled our event. And really what made the difference, Bob, was just as the week wore on, it was clear our players were very concerned about how they're going to get home, how their families, what's happening in Italy. If you remember going back, that people were really worried. So we ended up canceling, and then we suspended our season for 16 weeks. And that was, it's devastating to the local charities that we support, because I already explained to you, our model, our business model is charity after we paid the prize money to our players. So that was devastating. We also have operating reserves. We're really strong financially, but still it was quite a hit to our reserves of over $100 million. So we had to quickly come together in crisis management meetings from home every morning at 8:30 a.m. and the stress of all that. But I think what I'm most proud of is how our sport coming together with, the R&A over in Europe and the European Tour, with the PGA of America, with Augusta National, the Masters, kind of came together and led the way of returning to the things we love. So because of golf being outside, naturally socially distanced, we were able to but we're the first sport to return in Houston, Texas, in June of 2020. So we're really proud of that. So that
was it a bubble or something that the players all have to test to play and not go outside of the...
Exactly. So, and there was, if you can imagine, there were a lot of weeks where we didn't think we were going to do it, because you had players, of course, very worried about health. And so what we did is we contracted with Sanford Health. I always get it wrong, Stanford Health. But it's a big hospital chain, and they created mobile testing sites for us. So we created a bubble. And so key staff that were on site had to cut down the volunteers for their safety. A lot of our volunteers are over 65, so we had to be very careful. No fans, just the basics to run the tournament. And the players would show up every Monday. They'd go right to the testing site, just like many of you have been tested. They had to by themselves outdoors, get the test, and then wait in their cars. Very strict protocols for 90 minutes. And then once they were allowed, there's very little inside, even in the heat. They had very strict protocols. But as much as we could, as you all know, our instinct is to gather and talk, but we had strict protocols, no high fives, no hugging. And golf is a sport of relationships, and it's very much a relational sport. So it was tough for our players. We'd see them kind of, going in for the high five, or, it's a tradition to take off your hat and shake hands at the end of your round.
Exactly.
Yeah, so.
Of course, I can't ask about COVID and testing or hear you talk about it without asking about John Rahm. What happened there?
Yeah, did you guys see that last week? That was a bit. Well, at 5:30 last Saturday, I was getting ready to get ready to go out to dinner, and I got a call that we have a crisis management call at 5:30 p.m. or it's 5:26. So we all jump on, and the head of our competition said, "Well, this is the nightmare scenario that we feared for 12 months." And personally, there's a lot of nightmare scenarios in my head, so I was literally going through like which nightmare. We have a lot of nightmares, unfortunately. But it was that our leader would be 6.6 strokes ahead had tested positive. But cutting to the chase, how that happened is.
Do you all know that story?
Mm-hmm.
John Rahm what was the tournament? The PGA.
No. Oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. It's
the prize money was
it's not Travelers. It's just
600,000.
happened with it's Jack's tournament up at the Memorial. Jack Nicklaus's, brought to you, presented by Nationwide. Jack Nicklaus's event up in Ohio.
But the leader, John Rahm, was 6 strokes ahead. It was done. The money was literally. If I were he, I would have been spending that money, which I do in lots of. But then he was tested, which is rare because only those players who have not been vaccinated are tested.
Yeah.
He was tested and tested positive. They took him off the course. Literally, 2 guys came up and said. So why was he not vaccinated?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I have a question. Did you all have mandatory vaccination here? Or no?
It wasn't mandatory.
Individual, because there's health. Yeah. So similar to other organizations, we took the approach of very strongly encouraging and had our medical team out every week since early January, meeting with players to discuss their concerns. Just like other groups, younger people are, and not to mention a lot of them had been probably exposed and had been asymptomatic, so they kind of shrugged it, and they weren't, and frankly they need to think about the broader communities. We know young people can be these little petri dishes creating variants for all of us, and I put myself in that over 50. But what happened is we found there was vaccine hesitancy among young people who thought that it could have long-term ramifications on their ability to have children. That's what we heard from men and women. They were just concerned about that. But I don't know if that was John Rahm's concern, but that's what we learned early on. But we still had really good rates. We had, when John tested positive, we were nearing the 60%. He had a new baby at home. He's from Spain, and he has a house in the United States, and I didn't ask him personally.
Never publicly said what the reason was.
He had COVID before, asymptomatically.
Assumed it.
And I think he just had a new baby, and my guess is that he had been putting it off, and so he was actually vaccinated with his J&J shot the day before he tested positive. But as you know, it takes a couple weeks to be fully vaccinated, so it's a good message to everyone. Don't put it off. And it did cost him millions of dollars.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, I mean, the question, did we have mandatory vaccination? It was interesting to me. We didn't. Does anybody have an idea what percentage of our population in Vickers was not vaccinated? Or has not been?
I think 100% are vaccinated.
Well, I would have assumed that, but I don't think so. Joan, do you know?
It's the high 90s.
It's the high 90s.
That's
because
wonderful.
it was
It's
90s.
high 90s, but not yet 100%. So it's really been very strong.
The reason we don't know is some people went to Mayo and they got vaccinated there. That doesn't go in our count.
Yeah.
Wow.
In other words, they got vaccinated outside.
I think
So
we
it
just
could be
got a letter-
104.
I think we just got a letter that said we were 100%, but that the
And then we were
employees were only
93%
50
before
to
that.
60%.
Yeah, the employees were less.
Yeah.
Oh, the-
Our employees are
President.
closer to 80%. We have not made it mandatory, but we are following the CDC guidelines and as an incentive that if you are fully vaccinated, you can be mask optional. And so we do have employees who, and so it's kind of that diplomacy, when they start walking around and they're the only one with the mask on. And the numbers are really good and very encouraging. They're and I think what's happened is people just didn't want to be the first ones out and be. But now the number, what is it, 110 million shots?
Yeah.
And
I think the other big advantage is outside.
oh,
That
for
people
sure.
are,
Oh, yeah.
Another downside question as I think about the sport has to do with this whole diversity and inclusion issue, which I know I've listened to some of the press releases and read them, of course. Talk a little bit about that and the PGA.
Yes, I think we all, well remember, about a little bit over a year ago with the death of George Floyd and that racial awakening, if you will. And I know some of us, felt so deeply just to kind of see that horror on television. We're like any other group, we were honestly just not sure exactly what to do. And I'd say what we did as an organization, and our commissioner led the way, we just wanted to listen. And it's hard because we're in our own little bubble here, and golf's a bit in a bubble. So what we've done is we weren't one of the sports that immediately posted something on on our social media, we stand with Black Lives Matter. We didn't really do a lot of that as much as just listen. And we talked to our black players. We had Harold Varner III, we talked to Tiger, just kind of how are you feeling about this? What can we do as an organization? So we just started listening. And then what we paused. I think just the pain that we heard and just the horror caused us to want to sympathize. And so for the Charles Schwab, our first golf event, what we did, I thought it was really in line with who we are and our core values, is we did a tee time with the 8:46. At that time, it was 8 minutes and 46 seconds that we thought that was understood at the time. That was when George Floyd was,
Yeah.
And so what we did is we created a tee time of 8 minutes, of 8 a.m. 46, and we had.
I'm sorry, what's the tee time?
Oh, sorry, and those of you who know golf, so in a golf tournament, you might start teeing off at 8 a.m., and then it's like, every 6 to 10 minutes, just depending on the pace of play that they're trying to get, 12 minutes, 10 minutes. So we created a tee time for 8:46, where no one played, but there was a moment of prayer and reflection.
Cool.
And so that's how we honored it, and we just kind of thought about it. And then I think we just went back to who we are, all that we can do. We can't solve every societal ill, but we give a lot in the communities where we play. So what we did is then we announced we want to direct some of our funds to be part of the solution. So we already do so much, but Marcia Oliver, who I work closely with, she's our head of community and inclusion, and she's worked for the mayor's office. She's done a lot of amazing things, an amazing African-American executive. She's leading a new initiative to help the charitable focus, $100 million pledge over 10 years, that our charities will help with some of these things. And our charities, they can do a lot of things, and we're already doing that, but to really get, whether it's health inequities, whether it's educational inequities, whether it's, and staying away from things that are too divisive, but we're really excited about it. I'll give you an example. I didn't understand that, we have this amazing Mayo Clinic here that many of us love and use, but it's in an area that's really hard for people of color to get to, so there are ways that you can address, so that creates, things like that just exist, healthcare, other things. So I didn't know this, that in Memphis, we have an event there, that African American babies have a mortality rate that's worse than Iraq.
Good Lord.
Yeah, it's so infant mortality, and we partnered with Steph Curry's charitable organization to help understand the causes of that, be it nutrition, be it lack of care, so things like that. We're trying to direct our funds.
Part of the $100 million was used to support and join with the Curry effort.
Yeah,
In Memphis, or is
in
it
Memphis,
national
yeah.
study?
Yeah, they have national, but that's just an example. So that's one thing we're doing. We also started partnering with local chapters of the 100 Black Men of America, which we're really proud of. Those of you who've been to our tournaments, they often don't look enough like America. You know, they do. And we've heard from our black friends and people who love the game that sometimes they go and they're like, there's not a lot of people that look like me. And Tiger Woods, even though he's the most well-known player on the planet, he did bring a generation of people into the game, but I wouldn't say we've made enough progress even with his astounding play. So what we're trying to do is there's a lot of fronts. We're trying to get more volunteers, more media talent on TV that you see. You know, so it's, I don't know if you've noticed, but all other sports, you know, we just don't have a lot of black commenters and talents, so we're bringing that in. And it's something we're really proud of. There's a tour called the APGA, the Advocates Professional Golf Tour. It's one of my good friends, Ken Bentley. We're partnering with them, and they have a mission to help bring more African Americans into the game at the competitive level, professional level. So we actually have a quick little video if you wanted to see it.
By all means,
Okay.
let's do it.
Yeah, I'll move.
We just slide over a little bit.
Yeah.
I think
This
we'll do
is
some
gonna
questions
be,
from our group after the movie.
Can I just ask a quick question? Allison, how is Tiger Woods doing? I haven't read much about it.
Yeah, he is recovering. You know, it's a very complex injury
I'm
where
gonna
they
go downstairs.
rebuilt his ankle, and I mean, he's posted some on social media. I know our team talks with him regularly, but it's going to be a long road back. And I think we're just so happy that he's, you know, frankly, we didn't lose him, and that he's going to be able to be a parent to his children, his beautiful family. But I don't know if he'll ever play again. I hope so. I would never count that guy out, right? We have I do have a little piece I want to show after the diversity when it's appropriate to talk about Phil's win, because that's an interesting. I feel like Phil Mickelson setting a record of the oldest major winner will absolutely fuel Tiger Woods even more because of that rivalry. It'll be fun to watch. Okay, this is ours. Just a little bit of a diversity to help bring to life some of the things we're doing. You turn up a little bit.
I don't have the answer here. But as an organization, as we have been for a long period of time, we're committed to diversity and inclusion, and we're committed to doing what's right. And what has happened here is not right, and we are going to be a part of the solution.
As the PGA Tour commits to amplifying the voices and efforts to end systemic issues of social and racial injustices, we have reserved the 8:46 tee time to pause for a moment of silence, prayer, and reflection.
I think it's awesome that the PGA Tour has stepped up. There needs to be change, and I want to be a part of the solution, and I think this is, one way that the PGA Tour is stepping up and doing that.
The way that we raise awareness is by engaging our community tournament organizations. All of our tournaments are going to be identifying racial and social injustice causes in their local markets going forward. We would project to generate at least $100 million for those causes over the next 10 years.
Miles Foundation, I think he's using tennis as the vehicle here, but it's amazing what he's been able to accomplish. There's a great need for kids everywhere, but for kids in this area to have a safe place to come after school, to learn life skills, and really to dream big. You know, they think they'll be able to double the number of kids they'll be able to reach here in the neighborhood, and just so happy for them.
Having this type of commitment, a $500,000 grant from the players is tremendous. To have an organization like the Players, who's given back so much to so many different organizations here in Northeast Florida, to have them make this type of commitment in me and our staff and the foundation, it inspires me.
PGA Tour's been a tremendous sponsor, not only providing financial support, but to allow us to use some of the resources and properties that they have. We started with just 3 tournaments on inner city golf courses, and this year we'll have 9 tournaments with over $250,000 in prize money. So I think it's far surpassed anything that we have even imagined. The question of why there weren't more African Americans on the PGA Tour. If we could find a place or create an avenue where guys had a place to compete and develop their games, we could get more guys on tour.
Whenever I joined the first tee at the age of 10, I realized it's really about having fun, and it's more about building life core values. I want to diversify that PGA Tour pool of pros, and I feel like with First Tee, it gives exposure to a lot of diverse candidates that really takes things to the next level, and that's a future I want to be a part of.
PGA Tour through the years, generating over $3 billion for charity.
One of the things that we really wanted to do, you looked at the tagline, it was $3 billion and onward, and that's what this is all about for us. It's we want to continue to use every single week to make a huge impact in the communities where we play, and we hope that you're exceedingly proud of the support that you provide, because that enables us to impact over 3,000 charities, so many organizations and markets that that are living those dollars every single day, and it obviously doesn't happen without your support.
Fabulous. Just looking at that check to Malavia, Washington, we tried, Sally Ann and I held a couple of events at our house and tried to raise money. $500,000. I mean, that's the advantage of being big. That's congratulations.
Well, thank you. Well, I'm so, and I would thank all of you.
Turn your mic on, Allison.
Yeah, I will, sorry. I was going to say, just break it.
I was going to say thank you to all of you all as our neighbors, because everything that you do, the way the community has embraced this, and I'm the same way when oh gosh, the traffic, but just see that I hope that you all feel a sense of pride, because this is your tournament, this is our hometown, this is our event, and we do so much good together. So that's the special thing about us. It's all of the community coming together.
Can we take some questions from the floor? Anybody?
Yeah.
Or you want to do the other video?
Yeah, let's do that at the end.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. I'll leave you with a fun little sizzle piece.
Great. John?
What are you going to do with the space where you're demolishing those buildings?
That's a great question. So those buildings have been there for, oh my goodness, since 1987. Oh, they're no longer there. So these are the original buildings. Right now, we're looking at a couple different options. We wanted to create a better sense of arrival when you come to the TBC Sawgrass Club. So step one is get rid of those Brady Bunch buildings. They're pretty bad. And so what we would like to do is look at more of a green, area. One of the things that's really interesting is we normally would say we'll put some green space and then shroud and put some parking. But as rideshare and Uber and all of that is becoming so much more common, I don't know if we need as much parking as, because we have the parking near our new global home. So right now we're honestly looking at more just green space, not putting buildings. We don't see any further infrastructure. There might be one thing that we have proposed that we have to talk to with our neighborhood and the the homeowners association is a roundabout. So one idea is rather than those cuts in the road that you see, there would be a little roundabout there, and that one of them would take you through maybe just a sense of arrival, like a small gate, not even a real gate with a person there, but a sense of now you're here, and then you drive into the road. It'll feel a little bit more serene and pretty than it was with those buildings.
Allison, how many employees does PGA have?
So around the globe, we have, when you count our golf clubs, we have over 3,000, but here in Ponte Vedra it's about 750. And we have built that building to really take us through the next decade. And what's so interesting that's happening with work from home after the pandemic and people being able to really work from anywhere, I'm not sure that adding on in the future will be the way it will go. So I think we'll have more media building, like things where we can produce and distribute content around the globe through our satellite feeds. But our 750 employees, even if that grew to, I think it will, it's projected to grow, that we'll just continue to be in that building and just have people hoteling and working from home. But right now, 750, and each day we're building on how many we have showing up. Somewhere between 200 and 250 are in the building each day. Most people fully vaccinated.
Any other questions? Johnny?
Maybe you can hear without.
Okay. Beyond the new building, the office building, there's another entrance to an agriculture or a school of some kind. Tell me about that, please.
Yeah, it's the Agronomic Operations Center. And so what that is that's where we keep all of our agronomy team, so all the gardening, all the turf, everything like that. So it's agriculture management, that's things such as, just all the equipment, all that's where it's based out of, and that's where the staff works out of. 'Cause to maintain this course at championship levels takes a full-time year-round effort. So that's what called the AOC. No politics intended.
That brings up, I'm sorry, go ahead, Bill.
I've heard in the beginning where the new office is, that there's going to be other things developed there. Is that in the plans, like hotels and so forth, or is that just?
No, we don't think so, hotels. At one point there was, I think they do have what do you call it, the development rights, or what, there's something where there are development rights that they could, one earlier iteration, you know how it is, sometimes you want to get more than you need. So there was the ability to have like a PGA Tour center and have, some retail, but that's really not the master plan any longer now. We think our global home, we're really proud of it. It's beautiful, but we're sensitive and being, to our neighbors and wanting to keep this community, we're, like I said, good partners. And so I see there being an additional media presence, meaning we have a lot of employees in St. Augustine, about 100 employees. I see them joining and us doing more production. So there'll be some kind of a production studio we'll build already planned out near the global home. I don't even think you'll be able to see it from the road, but that's the only addition that we have master planned right now. We don't see retail and lodging. We have often thought about whether one of the entrances to the club, when you come into TPC Sawgrass, like on the side, whether a very boutique, maybe 8 cabins or something could be an element, but we have a very long-term deal with the Marriott, and so it's complicated because they're the lodging, so we'd have to work through some of those issues. But we've thought about that as a way to attract, just additional groups. Yes.
Louisa?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can hear.
Yeah. Could you get a mic? Just a second. Let's get you a mic, Louisa.
Good teamwork.
Hi, my name's Kim, Louisa Kim, and I for years volunteered for TPC. And I always thought that you organized it so well, where we used to park, and you had an easement so that when we left in the afternoon, we would park our cars in that area back there, but you could come out and you'd end up on Palm Valley Road. Do you still have that easement?
Yes, we do. We've actually purchased some more land.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, we purchased the Tabby building, so it's important to have some land abutting our property. Now, we have had, I think before COVID, they had a lot of the volunteers parking over at Davis Park, which I'm sure some of them were not thrilled about. But it just became a hard, really that goes to,
That's a pain in the neck.
I know. I think it's just all the parking because of the thousands of volunteers just getting the kind of what we need during the construction. But long term, I do think last year we had them on our property near the global home near Palm Valley.
Well, we used to park back where you built that, whatever it is, Agro-Monaco.
Oh, the AOC, yeah.
And then we'd walk through.
Nice.
And it was beautifully organized. I was always very impressed.
Great.
With how well it had been done for all those thousands of people. But the traffic is terrible.
No, I know. And well, thank you, Louisa, for volunteering, because I hope you feel proud that, we have people who will spend weeks, a week at a time volunteering all day long. And, sometimes it gets pretty hot out there, and every dollar, after we pay the bills goes to charity. So thank you.
Oh, I love it. More fun than our money.
I've heard that.
Joe?
I was very lucky. I was able to volunteer for 10 years on the 17th hole.
Oh, wow. That's pretty special. That's the best.
I have a big picture of the 17th hole in my house.
Fun. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
Carolee.
I just want to comment on how much your charities have done for everybody in this community, because I was involved in building Bird Island Park, and without the PGA Tour, I don't know if it would have been built, because they made a very large donation to the park. which was the first public and private endeavor in the town. And so just want to thank you. And I know that you've given, the tour has given so much to other charities in town. It's really wonderful to live here.
Well, thank you. I mean, I know I could say it over and over, but I hope you guys kind of get the point in a good way, that it's really our community which runs these tournaments. Yes, we have to have administration, that's what I do, but that's the really neat part of it coming together. And so then when we give it away, you know, we work with the community on where it goes. So it's not just like, I mean, I know some organizations, well, here's the United Way, or here's this, but we love to give it to all different organizations, which is really special.
Ken?
Allison, with the improvement in the equipment and in the ball, are we going to see longer courses, 600-yard par fours?
That's a great question. So, you know, our friends at the USGA, they spent a lot of time, and they've been working on something they call the Distance Insights Project for a while. They partner with us, and how that will affect the recreational game versus how it will affect the professional game. The most important thing that we're aligned on with them is the data, because yes, there are years where players are hitting it further, you know, because it's not only equipment, it's also physical fitness. People are healthier, stronger. I guess before COVID, I mean, we've had to move backwards, but then we'll move back. But it is equipment, but it's also a number of things. You know, it could even be weather. So we're like helping them analyze all the insights. They're looking at driver length right now. I think that's one issue of having a limit on driver length. As far as rolling the ball back, I haven't heard lately of any traction with that. I think that the fact is each year they analyze how far is the game, you know, especially on our tour, we're looking at it. But, you know, it's an interesting situation, because if you look back at the game, you know, a couple decades ago, it wasn't common for players to lift weights like they do now. There's a lot of factors that go into everybody hitting the ball further. It's not just equipment. But to your point, no, we all love the game. We don't want to have to, you know, redo iconic golf courses. I mean, that's not good for the game. So there are definitely a lot of smart people thinking about this all the time.
Is there an issue with golf course reclamation when let's say a municipal course or a club course established in order to sell the real estate? What happens to old courses? I don't know if that's...
Yeah, you know, it's funny you've mentioned that. And I don't know enough about it, but I know that with this whole social and, you know, justice movement in our country, and golf wants to be part of that, I think there's a definite push to really look at that and be careful and not, like what you said earlier, create these golf deserts. And so what you're seeing is kind of public-private partnerships coming together to preserve golf right in the middle of the community. A good example is Brentwood Course. And I didn't know this. Maybe some of you saw it. You can probably find it on YouTube, but I saw it during one of our telecasts, and that Brentwood that's a course down in on 8th Street, you know, which is a pretty underserved area, very precious. Yeah, it's a little blighted, but it was the first official integrated public entity in Jacksonville before school, because there was this group of black players who were only allowed to play on Mondays. And they were upset about it, and so they kept pushing, went all the way to the Supreme Court. And I didn't know this history, and it was the first officially integrated public course. The PGA Tour has helped. We created a First Tee chapter. There's public, private, and it's a Donald Ross course. It's actually a beautiful 9-hole course, and I've been out there. I do recommend that people play it, but that's an example of where we do have to prevent that. And it's a bigger issue of just sort of, what do you call that? When people, see now my memory.
Shannon.
Yeah, Shannon, where businesses come in and kick out the residents, gentrification.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's happening around Brentwood?
No, it's not right now, but I think with Springfield, you have to be sensitive to that, because it's this big space
make
in
it
different
a better
areas.
place.
Right. There could be a push, like, could we make more money? You know, developers will see an opportunity to make more money. So it takes the community saying, no, we want this.
One of the things I've always been concerned about, and has to do with just topics we've talked about here before, it's one thing to build a course and have it be there for black and white and rich and poor, but maintaining the course must be an expense that who pays? If it's a public course with either low or no greens fees, who pays to have it mowed every day and taken care of? First of all, what are the numbers like? Is that a large cost?
It depends. I think those of you who golf, you know there's a big difference in conditions. So if you have a championship level course like Augusta National, TPC Sawgrass, they're trimming the blade with scissors around the cup. I mean, it's immaculate. And then if you have a municipal that has a lower price point, it's going to be, it's playable, but it's not going to be the highest end. I'm sure that's like tennis and others. But what's kind of great about that is, and we've done this new thing called Make Golf Your Thing, where we talk about, we want everyone, it's a game for all, to make golf your thing, whether you play at a municipal, whether you do putt-putt. And the reality is you can play at different levels. So going out to a public course, being a higher handicap, I actually feel pretty comfortable there. I'm blessed. I play at Pablo Creek and I play at other courses, but there's some really good golfers there, and I love playing at a municipal because it's just fun and it's a little more relaxed. And I like that. So to answer your question, it's just much lower price point. I mean, you don't want to get so bad that it's like very, but it's like anything else. There's just different. If you want that experience, high end, you can get that and pay for it. If you want just to kind of go out with some friends and see more of that, where you see, I love to see at the municipals, you see a lot of young people, but way more diverse, a lot, like anything else, it's more accessible, but not maintained at that high level. And the grass standards are not going to be as high.
Tennis courts, which are you'd think are easier and cheaper to maintain. Municipal courts, quite often it's concrete or asphalt that's broken. Nets are never repaired. Often you would go out there and there just is no net. And I often think, well, who would do that? Who do you call? And I'm sure municipalities have an office for that or a function. But I wonder if it's very well financed.
The munis, yeah, I think you're right. They have to get appropriations. Yeah, just like anyone else, you have to get appropriations. And the first, do we have Make Golf Your Thing? Oh, it's the last one. Oh, it's fine. Yeah, if we okay.
Then let's just talk briefly. How old was Phil when he won that?
Almost 51. He's 50 when he won. Yeah, so I don't know, did any of you watch the PGA Championship at Kiowa? Yeah, that was pretty exciting. And when Bob and I were preparing for this, we talked a little bit about, what is the health of golf? And I did want to mention, I think you can tell it's really at an all-time high. I mean, we've had more people start or rediscover a passion for the game than we have in, I want to say, nearly 20 years, which is exciting for the game. I think during the pandemic, a lot of people discovered this game that could be played socially distanced, so we're seeing a huge resurgence. I don't know how long it will last, but equipment sales were up 14%. Golf is an $84 billion annual industry with $57 million in wages each year. So it's a big, billion, not million, billion. And so it's a big industry. It's very fragmented, but from equipment to tournaments to the municipals everywhere, it's a pretty big industry. And I thought, just to show some of the excitement around the sport, and we're continuing. As far as viewership, we're one of the only sports since 2016 that has seen an uptick in ratings and engagement. Off of a lower base, like the NFL is the most watched sport, as you know, in America, but their ratings have been flattered down. Every major sport has been flattered down except golf.
Interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
I didn't know that.
Shall we play the Phil?
And this probably is our wrap-up, so if you've got a question, hold it.
Be sure to turn it up.
That was history. We appreciate it.
Dude, amazing win. The fact that you can pull that off and you're still 50, my dad can barely break 90.
50 years old, but it's amazing. It's an amazing experience to be able to hold on for that long.
Lefties roll. It's the first time I've ever brushed the green before on 18. It was sick, and I'll never forget it. Congratulations, Phil.
Greatness, the greatest. Phil Mickelson, dropping birdies.
The people's champ. Come on, get out.
When the birdies drop, show these cats. The bombs go up. Show the cats. Phil cats, baby. Greatness, baby. Those cats.
We love Slim Phil. We love you, baby.
Thank you so much for showing all those young kids that they can keep pursuing their dreams and keep working hard.
And over 50 to do 30.
Over 50 to do 30, absolutely. That's a good one.
Keep it up. 50 is the new 20.
50 is the new 20. Keep going, man. We love you.
Way to go, Phil. You're an old dude, and I appreciate that about you. Phil. I love you, man.
From one lefty to another, thank you, Phil. Phil, just a phenomenal job. I mean, to close it out, just a clutch opportunity. 17, being in the long grass, being able to get out and rescue. Just, I mean, awesome. Love it. Great job, Phil.
And when he hits the shot, I'm sitting by the green, pin high, on the ocean side. Everybody starts screaming. It is insane. Like, you can't hear anything but screams. And then they crowd the green. Phil misses that putt. If he would have made that putt, the whole island may have shook.
Phil just came out, and I really think it was just a point of not beating yourself. And Phil came out, hit some fairways, had a good time, had a good weekend. It's like, hey, congrats, Phil, man. You played your game, you hit some fairways, and to all the golfers in the world, just hit the fairway. Keep doing your thing. Hellacious seats. Grind.
It was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. It was almost as good as Tiger at the Masters.
We're hanging out in the sand pit, watching excellence happen. We've been there since 2:30 p.m.
We love you. You're the greatest. Let's go, Phil.
Let's go, Phil. Last seat.
That's a good ending. Or is there any questions, anybody?
I just have a comment. Phil lost, didn't make the cut that week following that event.
No.
Yeah.
That's okay, he was tired.
Yeah, exactly.
That's golf, right?
That's not.
No, that's
Still, I know, it's a maddening game, and it's, I think it's, so some of you played, or, you know, it really is a remarkable game because it's, what did Mark Twain say? A good walk spoiled. That's my favorite. It is so fun. I go out with my husband most weeks and we'll play 9. And I would love to just pretend that it's this great social, you know, time and it's relaxing with the man I love. But honestly, it just gets you. It's intense. I still, you know, you're always playing to get better and it keeps you very focused, very mentally sharp. There's a strategy to it. So it's a lot of fun. Anything else?
John. I'm a tennis player, or was.
Like this guy.
But one of our friends had at a tournament in Hartford, 2 holes in 1.
What?
2 holes in 1.
Same tournament?
Same tournament, and that tournament now is Travelers in Cromwell, Connecticut.
That's coming up.
2 holes in 1, and his wife said on his license plate, the honeymoon is over. And the ball, I think, is down at World
Golf.
Yeah.
Museum.
So because of that, it got us very interested in following all golf.
That's exciting. You know, it's holes in 1 are still rare, but it's so fun when that happens. But it was kind of strange and eerie when we were returning to golf, but we had no crowds, and so a player, you know, is on a par 3 and he tees off and it's like a blind, maybe you just can't see that far ahead. And there, you normally, if there's a hole in 1, the crowd goes crazy. But it was funny, we watched one scene where, I forgot it was one of the players from Korea. He hit a hole in 1, he just kind of walks up and he's like, oh, you know, like, 'cause there's no one clapping. And I think someone just yelled, like, hey. It's so different. But I think that our players miss the roar and the energy. We hear that over and over. So glad to have them back. And, you know, we were excited to be part of, we cooperated with other sports through the Ad Council to do a vaccine encouragement video. I think I shared it with Sally and Bob. I loved it. It was Willie Nelson singing Sinatra, I'll Be Seeing You. And it was just all those things we love that we all miss so desperately during the quarantines. And to really encourage people to get back to doing the things we love, to gathering together, are so important that we all get vaccinated. So we're excited.
You know, how many of you know the name Denton Cooley, a heart surgeon from Houston, Texas?
Wow.
His wife and Sally Ann were good friends, and so we saw them a few times. And he mentioned one day that he played golf that day, and I asked him, well, are you pretty good at golf? Do you golf a lot? He said, oh, I'm terrible. He said, I'd have given it up years ago if I hadn't been married.
That's funny. Actually, my favorite golf joke is Marty and Phil are just finished up 18, and Marty just did terrible. You know, he couldn't hit anything straight. He's shanking, he's doing everything wrong. He goes into the locker room and he said, "I just had enough of this horrible game. I'm just going to end it all. I'm going to end it all right here." So Marty goes into the shower, takes out a razor blade, he's going to end it all because he hates this game. Starts to cut, and then Phil says, "Hey Marty, I got us the tea time Wednesday morning." He goes, "What time, Phil?"
Thank you very much, Allison. It's a great. It's so good to see how much PGA gives back. I never appreciated that.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you for all you do. And I know you all know Bob's and Sally Ann are pretty special what they do in the Dominican Republic and across everything. So thank you. Give me the money. Yeah, they're my role model.
As far as current events, we're not going to have a meeting next week. We'll start every other week the following week. Is that all right? And we'll do that through the summer.
Okay.
And I have no idea what will be current 2 weeks from now.
What's the next topic?
That's the point. It's highly likely that there will not be anything new, but then again, our president is overseas, that something could happen. Most of what's in front of Congress today, I think, is going to die there. We could talk a little bit about that, you know. So there will be current events that are more current than we know today. Thank you all.
Thank you guys.
And thank you, Allison. And we've got one more video if you want to sit for just a minute more.
Yes. You don't have to.
30 seconds.
All right.
And of course you don't have to. It's vaccination.
Yeah.
No, it's free. But
Okay. This is a
Be scenic, a real thrill, an action adventure. But it's more, so much more. It brings us together, no matter where you choose to play. Yeah, this game, it can be anything. So make golf your thing.